It's Tuesday, June 18th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. So the intent of the show is to talk about the different streams of information and to try to encourage all of us to look at information in a broader sense, examine, my favorite analogy here, examine all sides of the coin. And so why do the show? Why the Pro and Con Show? Well, because I think for me anyway, I served my country in the Navy for 5 years on submarines, and I'm proud that I served in the military. It was not particularly dangerous per se, certainly not anywhere near as dangerous as going on the battlefield as so many of my military colleagues have done, and some of them, of course, giving the last full measure of devotion, as Lincoln said. But even now, I find myself feeling like I have been I've been a poor steward of my legacy, and I feel like that's true for a lot of people, in fact. And I'm hoping to encourage a lot of folks. I hope that people will watch this video and the other videos and come to acknowledge that where we are. Me living in this modest house in Hudson, Wisconsin, even so, relative to billions and billions of people around the world, I am rich in material richness, just far, far beyond their comprehension. And the one thing that's true, because of the country that we live in, is I enjoy a level of freedom that, to the best of my knowledge, has never been surpassed on this planet. And I owe the previous generations. From time to time, and I hope you have done this. If you've not done it, then I hope you've seen images. If you haven't, go on the internet or go on some of the channels that you can look for and look for images of the national cemeteries, where you see the headstones of so many brave people that were willing to fight to the death, basically, for what you and I enjoy. Me, the freedom of being able to speak to you at this moment. And it feels to me like the truth, the truth, which is the who, the what, the where, the when. This is a unbelievably valuable thing to have. And I think that the vast majority of us someday are going to appreciate that fact at a level that maybe we never could have understood before. So why the pro and the con? Okay, pro and con, good and bad, for and against, all sides of the coin. It's because we govern each other. We have decided we're going to be a community. We're going to be a society. And we're going to work together in support of each other. And that makes life infinitely easier on each and every one of us. I don't have to know how to set a bone. I can have a doctor living down the street, and I do things. In my particular case, I worked many years in engineering and in business, and I contributed to society in those ways. And then in exchange for that, I got this commodity, money, which is basically an elixir, a lubricant for trade, for bartering. And so I did what I did and had a certain value in our society, and I was given a certain amount of money for doing those things. And then if I, had a broken bone or something, then I could give some of that to the doctor, and in exchange, that was his value added into society. And it all stems from our willingness to be together in the same commune, in the same society, and by then definition, under the same laws. The laws that apply to all of us, to each and every one of us. And well, if that's going to be true, if we're going to have laws that are going to apply to all of us, then we've got to work out whatever differences we have so that we can set those policies, set those laws in a way that is fair, reasoned, and just for all of us. And the best way to do that, unless I'm grossly mistaken, is to hold on to the truth, all aspects of the truth, with our very souls. And so I do the show, and I spend, whatever hundreds of hours a year doing this show, because it is my contribution to the future of this society, this fabric that is all of us. And I'm absolutely convinced, and I know in my very soul, my very core, that the policies and the laws that we promulgate for all of us will be so much better, so much more effective, if we embrace the truth. And so some analogies that I've used before. You're thinking about buying a used car, and when you first start looking at it, you don't know that there's something wrong with the transmission, and the owner is asking $10,000 for this used car. You're a good consumer, you're a smart consumer, you take the thing to a mechanic, and they look it over and they say it's a pretty good car, except for there's something wrong with the transmission. And while it's drivable today, it would seem like, given the noise and whatever else their inspection would reveal, it looks to us like the transmission has a great chance of potentially failing fairly soon. And of course, the transmission in a car is one of the most expensive items, and is, easily can be some thousands of dollars to replace. So, armed with the whole truth, you now are fully able to understand the value of this car, and you can decide now. You can say, I want to go ahead and pay the $10,000 because I was originally thinking it was worth more than $15,000 to me, and so I'll go ahead and buy it for $10,000 because I still think it's a deal. Or you might have been looking at it and saying, I think it's only worth $10,000, and now the transmission, so I want the price to be 7,000, or all the other variants that you could think of. But the important thing is that you're making the best decisions based on the whole truth. Where does the whole truth come from? Well, it comes from listening to all the voices. Another great analogy, at least in my mind, is you walk in to a house, you're a parent, and there's your kids. 3 or 4 kids are in there, and they've been fighting. And you come in the middle of a fight, and they, of course, are accusing each other of doing various things to each other that would cause them to become angry and curse and whatever, throw objects, whatever it is that they're doing in their fight, okay? And so what's the truth? Well, you weren't there to witness it, but if you step back and you ask the various people that were there, you will come up with a composite and end up knowing. You'll never know the perfect truth. You weren't there to witness the perfect truth. But based on a composite of what these different people were saying, you'll be able to put together a pretty darn good representation of the truth, the whole truth, and then act accordingly. And this is why I'm doing the show, and why I look at the 5 different websites. You may watch 1 or more television channels instead of looking at things on the internet. But that's exactly why I'm saying you, that analogy is exactly why I'm saying you should take the time to look at multiple and disparate versions of what people are saying about the news. And also, as I've warned many times, be careful about anything beyond the who, the what, the where, the when. And remember that the news cycle, the so-called news cycle, is 24 hours these days, and the actual news, the little tidbits of the who, the what, the where, and the when, maybe occupies 30 minutes of it, and the rest of it is being built up in the form of analysis and theory and projection and commentary, which all cloud the truth. Okay? So grab hold of the different views, evaluate them, and why take the extra time to do this? I'm not suggesting, by the way, that this is something that takes 40 hours a week or anything. I'm suggesting that it takes an hour or 2 a week, maybe 5 or 10 hours a month. But it's well worth doing, because we need each other to be well informed, so that we can go forward together in a path that makes sense. And I think when I visit these national cemeteries and I see all those headstones, we owe it. We owe it to people who have sacrificed much more than most of us will ever have to do for the privilege of expending a tiny amount of effort compared to theirs for the benefit of ourselves and our families and our friends and our neighbors and all of us in this community we call the United States, and frankly in the community around the globe that we call humanity. All right, so a few thoughts on why the Pro and Con show. Keep doing them every 15 or 20 minutes every day for the next next long time. And until the next show, this is Michael James Ott. Bye for now.